The death of Michael Jackson on June 25, 2009, remains one of the most shocking moments in modern entertainment history. When news broke that the King of Pop had suffered cardiac arrest at his Los Angeles home, the world seemed to stop. Television networks interrupted regular programming, radio stations played his greatest hits non-stop, and millions of fans gathered outside hospitals, homes, and memorial sites searching for answers. The official explanation appeared straightforward. Michael Jackson had died as a result of acute propofol intoxication administered by his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. Yet from the very beginning, many people felt there was more to the story. Questions emerged almost immediately. How could one of the most famous individuals on the planet, a man surrounded by managers, advisors, security personnel, and medical professionals, be placed in such a dangerous situation? Why were powerful anesthetics being administered inside a private residence rather than a hospital setting? And why did so many people close to Michael later suggest that he had been under extraordinary pressure during the final months of his life? These questions became the foundation for years of speculation, controversy, and debate that continue to this day. At the center of much of that discussion is Michael's sister, Janet Jackson. Throughout her career, Janet has been known for her professionalism, privacy, and reluctance to discuss family matters publicly. Following Michael's death, however, she occasionally spoke about her brother and the circumstances surrounding his final years. Her comments were often measured and emotional rather than accusatory, but many listeners felt they revealed concerns that extended beyond the official narrative. Janet repeatedly emphasized that Michael had been surrounded by people who did not always have his best interests at heart. She described a man under immense pressure, carrying responsibilities and expectations that few people could truly understand. While she never publicly endorsed conspiracy theories, her observations fueled speculation among fans who believed there were unanswered questions surrounding the events leading to Michael's death. In early 2009, Michael Jackson was preparing for what was expected to be one of the greatest comebacks in entertainment history. The This Is It residency at London's O2 Arena was initially announced as a limited series of performances but quickly expanded due to overwhelming demand. Ultimately, 50 shows were scheduled. The announcement generated enormous excitement. Tickets sold out almost instantly, media coverage intensified, and fans around the world anticipated the return of one of music's most iconic performers. Publicly, the project appeared to represent a triumphant new chapter. Privately, however, reports suggested that Michael was struggling with exhaustion, insomnia, and the immense demands associated with preparing for such an ambitious production. Rehearsals were intense, expectations were enormous, and the financial stakes involved were staggering. The economic significance of the tour cannot be overstated. Concert promoters, production companies, merchandise partners, and various business interests all stood to benefit from the success of the performances. At the same time, failure would have carried major financial consequences. This reality has led some observers to argue that Michael was being pushed beyond reasonable limits. Whether or not those concerns were justified remains a matter of debate, but it is clear that extraordinary pressure surrounded the project. Rehearsal footage later released in the documentary, This Is It, showed Michael actively participating in preparations, singing, dancing, and directing creative decisions. To supporters, the footage demonstrated that he remained deeply committed to his craft. To skeptics, it raised additional questions about whether someone dealing with serious health issues should have been expected to maintain such a demanding schedule. One of the most controversial figures in the entire story is Dr. Conrad Murray. Hired as Michael's personal physician, Murray was responsible for overseeing aspects of the singer's medical care during preparations for the tour. Following Michael's death, investigators discovered that propofol, a powerful anesthetic typically used in surgical settings, had been administered in the singer's home. During the subsequent trial, prosecutors argued that Murray's actions represented gross negligence and directly contributed to Michael's death. In 2011, Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. For many people, the conviction provided closure. The legal system had identified a responsible party, and justice had been served. Others, however, viewed Murray differently. While acknowledging his responsibility, they argued that focusing exclusively on the doctor failed to address larger questions. How was such a treatment arrangement allowed to exist in the first place? Why were powerful medications being administered outside a clinical environment? What oversight mechanisms, if any, were in place? These questions fueled ongoing speculation that Murray represented only one part of a much larger system. Supporters of this view do not necessarily dispute the court's findings but argue that the circumstances surrounding Michael's final months reveal broader failures involving management, business interests, and the entertainment industry itself. Adding to the intrigue was Michael's long and often public conflict with Sony Music. In the years before his death, he openly criticized executives at the company and accused them of unfair treatment. He expressed frustration regarding business disputes and frequently spoke about control over artistic and financial assets. One of the most valuable components of Michael's business empire was his interest in the Sony/ATV music publishing catalog, which contained rights to thousands of songs by some of the world's most successful artists. The catalog represented an asset worth billions of dollars and became an important part of discussions following his death. Although no credible evidence has ever established a connection between ownership disputes and Michael's passing, the existence of such valuable assets inevitably fueled speculation among fans who already distrusted powerful corporate interests. The years following Michael's death were marked by legal battles, family disagreements, and disputes over his estate. Questions regarding financial management, inheritance, and the future of his legacy became subjects of public attention. Family members occasionally found themselves on opposing sides of legal and business issues. For observers, these conflicts created the impression that Michael's death had unleashed forces that extended far beyond the loss of a beloved performer. The struggle over his legacy demonstrated the enormous financial and cultural value attached to his name, music, and image. Perhaps the most emotionally powerful aspect of the controversy involves Michael's own statements during his lifetime. Friends, associates, and family members have described occasions when he expressed concerns about powerful interests, personal safety, and the pressures he faced within the entertainment industry. Some interpret these remarks as evidence that he feared genuine threats. Others believe they reflected the anxieties of a man who had spent decades living under extraordinary scrutiny. Regardless of interpretation, those statements continue to influence public perception. When viewed alongside later events, they encourage some people to question whether the official explanation tells the entire story. More than a decade after his passing, Michael Jackson remains one of the most influential entertainers in history. His music continues to reach new generations, his performances remain cultural landmarks, and his legacy inspires passionate discussion around the world. Yet the circumstances of his death continue to generate debate. For some, the case is closed. A tragic combination of medical negligence and personal vulnerability led to an avoidable loss. For others, unanswered questions remain regarding the environment surrounding Michael during his final months, the people who benefited from his work, and the immense pressures imposed upon him by an industry built on profit and celebrity. Janet Jackson has never claimed to possess secret answers, nor has she publicly endorsed elaborate theories. Nevertheless, her words carry weight because they come from someone who knew Michael not as a global superstar but as a brother. Her reflections remind people that behind the headlines, court cases, and speculation was a human being struggling with challenges most people can scarcely imagine. Whether history ultimately reveals new information or not, the fascination surrounding Michael Jackson's death endures because it touches on larger questions about fame, power, loyalty, and the price of being one of the most recognizable figures on Earth. The world may never agree on every aspect of what happened in 2009, but the search for understanding continues, driven by a desire to separate myth from reality and to understand the final chapter in the life of one of music's greatest icons.